I don't know what he's doing. We never ever know what he's doing. It's always something different. But it's always very entertaining and thought-provoking. I mean, if you don't think at all tonight, you will when he gets on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, Ski.
In the beginning, science and religion kissed like old lovers, held hands, and danced into the darkness. Bang! The first few seconds of the universe, all the matter that would ever exist in the universe existed in something the size of a thimble. There was no room for matter at this point in life. The only thing that there was anger and energy. Everything in the universe pressed together was nothing but heat. And this heat had nothing to take its anger out on, so that's what it did. It ate the nothing around it, and in its wake, it left reality. Now, as space began to unfurl, and reality came into existence, this cloud of heat that was the early universe began to have something that had never been experienced before, elbow room. And as the universe got bigger and bigger, the cloud started precipitating out of itself things like gluons, quarks, barons. As the universe got even bigger, femtoseconds later, these things got together and became electrons, neutrons, and protons. And as the universe got even bigger, these things coalesced into the most common element in the universe, hydrogen. Everywhere we look in this universe, we see hydrogen at all corners of the universe, at all corners. Now, the first rule of this brand new universe is nothing's fair. Even in this first universe, as things start... As the universe starts to expand, there's places where there's more hydrogen and places where there's less hydrogen. And now we get to the second rule of this young universe, and that is the siren call of gravity. Even though it might not seem like much, hydrogen has some mass. And where there's small collections of it, it began calling more mass to it. Hydrogen pulling across from different spaces. Now, in the beginning of the universe, these differences were so minute you wouldn't be able to see them. But as the universe expands, it's like a magnifying glass. And we can see these small places where the gravity was unequal against the background of the far universe right now, cosmic background radiation. This hydrogen called to itself, and it began coalescing into space. Now, have you ever run and then reached out and grabbed a pole, how it spun you around? That's exactly what happened with these early clumps of matter. As matter's pulling towards each other, it misses and spins. And these spins form disks as things get closer and closer. And these disks begin to coalesce. And right in the middle of these disks, the hydrogen starts bumping up against each other. Starts getting closer and closer. And as more and more hydrogen come together, the mass in this center becomes so heavy, so intense, that something happens. Bang! The first new sun. This is an O-series sun. It burns so bright and so hot, it is white-blue like an arc welder. It eats through hydrogen at a speed that is unbelievable. On the inside of it, all it's doing is taking hydrogen and hydrogen, smashing it together to form helium. Now, helium is a fairly inert element. It doesn't do much. It just sits in the stomach like a truck stop burrito, and it builds up. So after millions of years, this star is full of almost nothing except helium. And now something strange happens. The inside of this sun is full of things that were burning once. Now, as it was burning, it releases hydrogen and hydrogen smashed together form helium, releases photons, releases heat. And as it does this, it pushes against gravity. And here we have the best tug of war in the universe. Gravity saying, come here. And light saying, get the fuck away. And as these things pull and push towards each other, we come up with the sun. And this is the delicate balance that it has. But at some point, the insides are so full with helium that it can't do it anymore. It just gives up and it condenses. Now, once the center part condenses, it makes too much gravity in itself for more helium to come in. So what happens is a whole ring around that, a sphere around this dark sphere of helium, catches fire. And the outer rings of this sun start expanding. When our sun does this in a couple more million years, the red giant that our sun will become will consume. It will grow bigger than Earth's orbit. One giant sun gone from a little point 7 minutes away to eating the Earth. But this corona only burns for so long, and then on the inside, without anything else to keep it from, without any push, without any heat to keep it going, crunches down, and then crunches down. Now what happens next depends on how heavy the star is. If the star is really light, it just peters out and becomes a white dwarf. If it's really heavy, it'll bend space and reality around itself, and it will become a black hole, sucking in almost everything. Almost everything. But if it's not too heavy and not too light, what will happen is in the inside, all of these elements will start crushing down further and further. The helium will merge with itself 3 times to form carbon and oxygen. Once it forms carbon and oxygen, it'll try to do it again because these things don't generate much heat. When they condense, they let out a brief burst, but it's not enough to keep it going. It condenses again. It's too cold to keep itself going, and it crushes into iron, and then it tries crushing one more time. Now, here is something that is more gigantic than just about anything we can imagine. Our sun, you could put 1 billion Earths inside, but some of the suns that are out there are vastly bigger, dwarf our sun by so much. But when you try to condense iron one more time, we stop obeying the rules of Newtonian physics and we start obeying quantum. It won't take it. So what it does is it explodes. BAM! This is a supernova. This is a supernova. And what it's going to do is it's going to take everything that it has spent the last millions of years making and throw it out into the galaxy again, seeding everything around it with helium, hydrogen, carbon, oxygen, iron. Do these things sound familiar? Because all it's going to do is start this whole process over again. Once again, gravity will call things together and they'll spin together. And these things will come together and form disks. And in these disks, on the inside, something will clump together and set fire again, and you'll have a new sun. But this won't be an O-series star. It won't be bright light. This will be maybe a nice yellow star. Maybe a K or an M-series star like we have. And somewhere around this major clump of elements, we'll have smaller groups that clump together and form, spinning in this proto-galaxy. Now there's the distance that's not too close to the sun. Not something like Mercury, where everything is boiled off. And not so far away that it's just ice or gas giants. They call it the Goldilocks zone. And in this Goldilocks zone, you have everything that you need. You have the carbon, you have the iron, you have the oxygen, you have the nitrogen, all formed in one of these large suns that exploded millions of years ago. And if everything's just right, and you have water, and you're not too hot, and you're not too cold, and you have the carbon, what you have is bang. Life. Every single cell in your body is based off of a carbon chain, and every single molecule of every single atom of carbon you have was forged in the sun that came before our sun. Think about it. When scientists come to you and say, "Don't you see how amazing this world is? Don't you know how incredible and unlikely your existence is?" When they say, "You are the stuff of stars," they're not being poetic. They're being literal.